Welcome, everyone. We are finally at the conclusion of our playlist for this week, where we are ready to take all of the changes that we've made to our Quarto website and push them up to our GitHub repo so that we update our website in GitHub pages. So we've just been playing around with making changes to the files locally on our computer and seeing what that website looks like locally on our computer. And here's the website that we have so far. So we set up an about template and we have a favorites page. So let me just make one more change here before we head over to GitHub. So what I want to do is go into the Quarto document and let's just say there are some additional things we could change. So I can change the background color. We'll see what that looks like. I'm going to use this CSS command because there is a style CSS file in here that just adds some styles to the website. That's going to work a little bit nicer with the themes that we're using. And this is an option you may or may not decide to do. I'm going to add this option back just so you can see what it does. But this is a table of contents. So the default is not to add a table of contents. We're going to add a table of contents. And there are other ways that you can customize the table of contents, like how many levels do you want that table of contents to go. So the table of contents is going to be built based on the headers that we use in the Quarto documents, each Quarto document. But we'll take a look at that in a second. So I'm going to save this Quarto. I'm going to render one of these files, and all I need to do is render one of these Quarto documents, and it's going to apply this change in the overall style to all of the Quarto documents, to all of the HTML documents. So I changed the background color to gray. That was one of the changes that I made. We added that CSS styles. I don't think we see that reflected too much. And then over here, if I click on the favorites page, you can see a table of contents was added on the right side. And we had two headers that we used on this page at header level 2. We had favorite dogs and we had favorite characters from the Lord of the Rings. And so if I go into the favorites just to see what happens, if I change the header level of favorite dogs to 1 and I save this file and I render it, come back over here, it's rendering. You can see that it moved the favorite dogs. It's a little bit bigger, not too much, but it's slightly bigger than the header 2. And when it builds the table of contents, this is at the first level, and this is indented because it's a kind of sub header underneath this main header. So that's what the headers do in these Quarto documents when we're working with Markdown. But I want these two things at the same level, so I'm going to use the same header level for them both. I am going to go back into the Quarto document, looking at this page. I am going to say, I don't like this background color, so I'm going to go back to white. So let me get rid of the background color, or let me just comment it out. So maybe I want to add it back in later. I'm going to save my Quarto file. I'm going to render it. And now if I go over to the favorites, you can see the background has changed back to white, and maybe this green color is easier to pick up over here. Okay, so now I think my website looks great. I think I am ready to be employed. I think I'm going to get lots of emails from my About page, but now I want the rest of the world to see this website. So there's two ways that we can do this. So I'll describe the easy way first this time, and then for those that liked using the terminal or the command line, we can also talk about how we would do that with the command line. So I'm going to go into my GitHub repo, and these were updated yesterday when I was working on this 16 hours ago. But now I came back, I made some additional changes, and I want to add those changes. So you can see that a lot of the files we haven't done too much with. You can see these comments, and you can see how we played around with doing some of the committing um, when we were practicing our GitHub skills. But now what I want to do is add some additional files into here. So I can add files by clicking the plus sign here, and I'm going to upload files. Then I need to open up a file manager, and my files that were updated were in the my OER directory in a directory called demo site. And you can see that a lot of these files were updated this morning. And if you are doing things this way, I'm going to do the drag and drop method. You could just copy all of these files if you're not sure which ones have changed and which ones have not. And you could drag all of these files in over here, and it's going to pick up on which files have been changed. It's staging all of these files to be committed. I could type a message over here, like final edits the website, done, and then click the commit changes button. Then all of your changes have been pushed, and your website's going to update automatically. I'm going to do this. I will cancel this and just show how we could do the similar thing from a command line or from a terminal. So I've got my terminal open. What I want to do is say, I need to change the directory. So I'm in the demos site directory where I have my final files. So for me, that was in documents and then OER. And then the directory was called demo site. And now I can go in here and type git status to see what changes have been made. And this is listing all of the files that have been changed since the last time I committed things. And here I can see that there were some files that existed before that have been modified. And then there were a number of files that are not tracked. So these files are not under version control. And that's because a number of these files were added since the last time. And we also have this git ignore file, but this git ignore file is special. It is not going to be added to version control. But what I want to do is first add all of these files. When you have new files that have been created, you need to add those files. That's what's being shown down here. You need to use git add or git commit all to add files. So I'm going to do git add, and this is I'm going to put a star here. So I'm just going to add all of the new files, and that stages them. So let me do a git status now. So now you can see we've got all of these files that have been modified. Some of them have been staged. And you might have more files than I have listed here because I had to kind of adjust things in the meantime. But the idea here is you need to run a git add to add all of the files. And you want to make sure that you're also adding things that were changed or added in the docs folder. So now I've got all of my changes ready to go. These are kind of in the list of these things have been changed. So it's a two-step process. I need to do git, commit, and here I'm going to commit all of these files. So I'm going to do -a to commit all of them. And I'm going to also add an M on here to add a message. So here is my final website edits. We'll do something like that. So I'm going to hit enter here. This has now staged all of those files for commit. It's creating some of the files and it's changing other files. So now let me run a git status. And this is saying that there are no untracked changes here. Everything looks good. So then we're going to do a git push to push those changes up into GitHub. So that has pushed all of those files up into GitHub. So now whatever I'm going to run a git status over here. So this says now our branch is up to date with the main branch, which is the remote branch, except for this git ignore file, which we don't need because that's just including some information about how version control is working here. So now all of the changes that I made on my computer, those files, those changes have been pushed into the GitHub version. And so now we're ready to check out our website. And it might take a minute or two for those changes to be reflected in the website. So let's open up the address here, would have been aspiegler.github.io/, and then it was demo site. I misspelled that. I missed an I, demo site. And now our website has been updated. So it took about a minute, less than a minute, because I was talking the whole time. But now our website that we had published earlier, they did not have an about page. The home page had that template of like 1 + 1 = 2. So now the changes that we made to the home page, making it an about template, that has been pushed in over here. And we can see our about page. We removed the link that said about because the about page is here in the home page. And now we should have a favorites page over here that has the table of contents. So now the website in GitHub is exactly what we saw on our computer. And now we've completed creating our website, our Quarto website, which is being published in GitHub pages. So feel free to play around and make your website really, really pop. Okay, thanks everyone.